If you eat breakfast cereal, there's a good chance the box sitting in your pantry right now is doing more damage to your body than the donut you feel guilty about. And I'm not talking about some sketchy off-brand cereal from a gas station. I'm talking about the ones with cartoon mascots you trusted as a kid. The ones sitting on the top shelf at Walmart with a made with real fruit sticker slapped on the front. Some of these boxes have more sugar per serving than a candy bar, and until very recently, several of them were still using dyes made from petroleum. Yes, the same category of chemical used to make asphalt. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which 10 cereal brands you should be walking straight past next time you're in the grocery aisle, and 5 that are actually worth putting in your cart. And trust me, one of the healthy ones on this list might genuinely shock you, because it's not the one you're expecting. Stick around until the end, because I'm also going to give you a 30-second trick for reading any cereal box that will save you from getting fooled by clever marketing ever again. Before we get into the list, here's something you need to understand, because it changes everything about how you should be reading a cereal box in 2026. For a decade, American cereal companies got away with using artificial dyes. Red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2, green 3, to make cereal look more vibrant and appealing, especially to kids. These are petroleum-derived synthetic dyes, and several of them are restricted or require warning labels in the European Union, while being sold freely here without so much as a disclaimer. In early 2025, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, under Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., along with the FDA, announced a sweeping plan to phase these synthetic dyes out of the American food supply entirely by the end of 2026. Since then, companies have been scrambling to catch up. Some, like General Mills, pledged to remove artificial dyes from their entire U.S. cereal lineup by the summer of 2026. Others, like Kellogg's, now operating as WK Kellogg, set a much later deadline, all the way out to the end of 2027, and retailers have started taking matters into their own hands. Target, for example, announced it will stop stocking cereals containing certified synthetic colors, and confirmed that popular boxes like Trix and Lucky Charms are getting reformulated specifically because of this pressure. So right now, in real time, you are watching the cereal aisle change in front of you. Some boxes on the shelf today still have the old dye-laden recipe. Some have already been quietly swapped out for versions using natural pigments derived from things like spirulina, turmeric, radish, and beet juice. And that's exactly why you can't just trust the brand name or the packaging anymore. You have to actually know what you're grabbing, because 2 boxes that look identical on the outside might have completely different ingredients on the inside, depending on when they were manufactured. So let's start with the 10 cereals you need to put down and walk away from, ranked from bad to worst. Number 10 on the list, Froot Loops. Let's just get this one out of the way immediately, because it's the poster child for everything wrong with kids' cereal. A single labeled serving of Froot Loops packs around 12 grams of sugar. And let's be honest, nobody eats a serving of Froot Loops. Most people, especially kids, are pouring double or triple that into one bowl before they even add milk. For years, Froot Loops relied on a cocktail of synthetic dyes, including red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, and blue 1, all stacked together just to make the rings look like a rainbow exploded in your bowl. Kellogg's has committed to removing these dyes, but not until the end of 2027, which is one of the latest timelines of any major cereal company. That means for at least another year or more, boxes with the old formulation are going to keep sitting on shelves right next to newer ones, with no obvious way to tell them apart just by looking at the front of the box. And here's the part that really gets me. Nutritionally, Froot Loops contains basically zero actual fruit. The fruit in Froot Loops isn't even spelled like the real word, and that's not an accident. It's artificial fruit flavoring built in a lab to taste vaguely tropical. You're paying for sugar, dye, and 30 years of clever marketing, not nutrition. Number 9. Captain Crunch. This one hurts because the Captain has serious nostalgia power. For a lot of people, this cereal is tied directly to childhood Saturday mornings. But nutritionally, Captain Crunch is a disaster hiding behind a naval uniform. It's made almost entirely from corn flour and sugar, with barely any fiber or protein to speak of. We're talking less than 1 gram of fiber per serving in most varieties, which is almost nothing. The signature crunch that makes it so addictive comes from a hardened sugar coating baked directly onto the corn pieces, which is also exactly why it famously shreds the roof of your mouth if you eat it too fast. That's not a coincidence. That's just concentrated sugar acting like tiny shards of glass. Worse, the Crunch Berries variety layers on the same synthetic dye cocktail we just talked about with Froot Loops, just to make the berry pieces pop with unnatural color. This is a cereal engineered purely for taste and crunch, with almost no thought given to actual nutrition, and it hasn't meaningfully changed its core recipe in decades. Number 8. Honey Smacks. Sometimes now sold under variations of the Smacks name, this cereal has one of the worst sugar-to-cereal ratios on the entire mainstream market, historically clocking in at around 55 to 56% sugar by weight. That's not a typo, and it's worth repeating slowly. More than half of what's physically inside the box is straight sugar coating, wrapped around puffed wheat. To put that in perspective, that's a higher sugar percentage by weight than many name-brand cookies you'd find in the bakery aisle. This cereal actually made national headlines years ago for a salmonella recall that led to dozens of illnesses across multiple states, and its underlying nutritional profile hasn't gotten meaningfully better since then. It remains, pound for pound, one of the most sugar-dense products in the entire cereal aisle. Number 7. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I know, this one's a fan favorite, and I'm not here to ruin your memories. But look at the label next time you're standing in the store. A typical serving carries around 10 to 12 grams of sugar, and the cinnamon dust that coats every single piece and pools at the bottom of the bowl once the milk starts working on it is basically pure sugar and cinnamon flavoring with almost no nutritional value whatsoever. General Mills has made genuine moves to clean up synthetic dyes across its broader cereal lineup, which is a real step forward and deserves some credit. But removing red dye doesn't fix a cereal that's still nearly 1/3 sugar by calorie count. You're trading one problem for a smaller one, not solving the actual issue. Number 6. Lucky Charms. Here's an interesting twist, because Lucky Charms is actually one of the cereals General Mills specifically called out during its dye reformulation announcement. And Target confirmed it's one of the boxes getting an updated formula as retailers push out synthetic colors entirely. So credit where it's due. The marshmallow colors are shifting toward plant-based dyes sourced from things like spirulina extract, turmeric, and radish concentrate, which is a genuine improvement over the old synthetic blend. But don't let that fool you into thinking Lucky Charms is suddenly a health food, because it isn't even close. It's still built on a base of sugary oat cereal studded with marshmallow bits, and it still carries around 10 grams of sugar per serving, with minimal fiber and almost no meaningful protein. A dye swap is genuinely a win when it comes to avoiding synthetic chemicals, but it does absolutely nothing to fix the sugar bomb sitting underneath the colorful marshmallows. Number 5. Cocoa Puffs. This is chocolate milk in cereal form, and General Mills doesn't even pretend otherwise. The entire marketing campaign for decades has been built around the cereal that turns your milk chocolatey. That tagline alone should tell you everything you need to know about what's actually in the box. Around 11 to 12 grams of sugar per serving, made mostly from corn and sugar, with cocoa processed using alkali to darken the color, and just enough real cocoa flavor blended with artificial flavoring to make the leftover milk turn brown and sweet. This is dessert dressed up as breakfast, plain and simple, and it's marketed almost entirely toward children who don't know the difference. Number 4. Trix. Another cereal specifically named in Target's recent crackdown on synthetic dyes, which tells you Trix was one of the worst offenders sitting on shelves before the phase-out began. The original formula used an especially heavy blend of artificial colors to create that signature fruity rainbow look that's been part of its branding since the 60s. Even in its naturally flavored iterations from years back, when the company briefly experimented with a cleaner formula, the sugar content barely budged. It's still sitting around 10 to 11 grams per serving today. Trix is a cereal built entirely around visual appeal for kids, with the actual grain content playing a distant second fiddle to sugar and color, and that hasn't fundamentally changed even as the dyes get swapped out. Number 3. Frosted Flakes. This one tends to surprise people because it feels like a classic, almost wholesome option compared to the neon cereals we just talked about. But Frosted Flakes is really just plain cornflakes with a heavy sugar glaze baked on. And I mean heavy. A typical serving carries around 11 grams of sugar, and because the flakes themselves are so light and airy, most people end up pouring way more than an actual serving size into their bowl without realizing it. Which means real-world sugar intake in an average bowl is often double what's listed on the nutrition label. Tony the Tiger has convinced generations of kids and even adults that this is great, but nutritionally, it's essentially a corn and sugar delivery system wrapped in 70 years of brand loyalty and a friendly mascot. Number 2. Reese's Puffs. This is essentially a candy bar that's been reshaped into little cereal balls. It's made by General Mills in partnership with Hershey's, and it delivers exactly what you'd expect from a Reese's branded product. Heavy sugar content, cocoa and peanut butter flavoring, with around 11 to 12 grams of sugar per serving, and almost no redeeming fiber or protein to offset it. It's marketed directly toward kids, tastes like dessert, because it essentially is dessert. And the chocolatey peanut butter taste branding on the front of the box is basically an admission of what you're actually eating. If you wouldn't hand your kid a mini Reese's peanut butter cup for breakfast, you probably shouldn't be pouring this into a bowl and calling it a balanced meal either. And number 1, the cereal you should avoid more than any other on this entire list. Corn Pops, also branded in some markets simply as Pops. Here's why this one takes the top spot over even the more obviously sugary, more colorful options. Corn Pops flies completely under the radar because it doesn't look like a junk cereal at first glance. There's no marshmallow, no chocolate coating, no rainbow of dye staring back at you from the box. It just looks like slightly yellow puffed corn, almost like it belongs in the same category as plain corn flakes. But don't be fooled by appearances. Corn Pops has historically carried one of the highest sugar percentages by weight in the entire mainstream cereal category, rivaling Honey Smacks pound for pound, while offering essentially zero fiber and minimal micronutrient value beyond basic vitamin fortification sprayed onto the outside. It's proof that you genuinely cannot judge a cereal by how clean or plain it looks sitting on the shelf. You have to flip the box over and actually read the nutrition label and ingredient list. Every single time. No exceptions. Okay, now that we've covered the 10 cereals to avoid, let's flip the script completely, because I promised you 5 that are actually worth buying. And these aren't just less bad options that you're settling for. These genuinely hold up nutritionally when you put them under the microscope. Number 5. Post Grape Nuts. This cereal has almost a cult following, mostly because people either love it or hate the texture. It's dense, hard, almost like tiny crunchy pebbles rather than light flakes or puffs. But nutritionally, it's one of the best cereals sold in mainstream American grocery stores. Full stop. A serving typically carries around 7 grams of fiber and roughly 6 or 7 grams of protein, with only about 4 grams of sugar. A fraction of what you'd find in any cereal on our avoid list. It's made primarily from whole wheat flour and malted barley flour, baked and then ground down, with virtually no added junk ingredients padding out the label. If you can get past the dense texture, or you're willing to let it soften for a few minutes in milk or mix it into yogurt, this is a legitimate high-fiber, high-protein breakfast option that will keep you full for hours, not minutes. Number 4. Kashi Go Rise. Kashi has built its entire brand identity around cleaner ingredient cereals since it launched. And this particular line delivers on that promise better than most. It's typically formulated with a blend of quinoa, whole grains, and added plant-based protein, landing around 11 to 13 grams of protein per serving depending on the specific variety you grab, along with several grams of fiber and noticeably lower sugar than almost anything on our avoid list. This is one of the few cereals currently on the market actually formulated to compete with the protein content of eggs or Greek yogurt, while still giving you that familiar cereal and milk breakfast experience people actually enjoy eating. Number 3. Bob's Red Mill Muesli. This is about as close to whole food in a box as cereal gets in a modern grocery store. Muesli isn't puffed, extruded, or coated in sugar syrup like almost every commercial cereal on the market. It's simply rolled oats combined with nuts, seeds, and dried fruit, left largely unprocessed and unrefined. A serving typically delivers around 5 to 6 grams of fiber, healthy fats from the nuts and seeds mixed in, and no added dyes or artificial flavoring whatsoever, because there's honestly nothing artificial to hide behind in the first place. The sugar you do get from a bowl comes entirely from actual dried fruit, not from corn syrup or a sugar coating sprayed onto grain. It's a slower, more satisfying breakfast that will actually keep you full until lunch instead of leaving you hungry an hour later. Number 2. 3 Wishes Cereal. This is a newer entrant into the market that's been gaining serious traction, particularly among parents trying to find a kid-friendly cereal that doesn't come loaded with sugar and synthetic dye. It's made primarily from chickpea and lentil flour instead of corn or wheat, which pushes the protein content up to around 8 to 9 grams per serving, while keeping sugar under 3 grams total. It comes in fun shapes designed to mimic the playful, colorful cereals kids actually gravitate toward. But the nutrition label looks nothing like Froot Loops or Trix once you flip the box over. This is genuine proof that fun and appealing for kids, and actually healthy, don't have to be opposites, even though the cereal industry has spent decades convincing us otherwise. And number 1. The best cereal you can currently buy in a mainstream grocery store. Plain shredded wheat, specifically the original, unfrosted version, not the frosted mini spoon-size ones with sugar added. I know it sounds boring compared to everything else on this list, and honestly, that's exactly the point. Original shredded wheat typically contains 0 grams of added sugar, around 6 to 7 grams of fiber per serving, no dyes of any kind, no artificial flavoring, and an ingredient list that usually reads as just one single word: Wheat. It's not exciting, it's not flashy. There's no cartoon mascot waving at you from the box. But it is genuinely one of the cleanest, most nutrient-dense breakfast options sitting on a cereal shelf anywhere in the country right now. If you want to make it more interesting without ruining what makes it good, throw some fresh berries and a light drizzle of honey on top. And you've got a breakfast that will actually keep your blood sugar stable through the whole morning, instead of spiking it and crashing you by 10 a.m. like most of the cereals on our avoid list will. So here's the big takeaway from everything we just covered. The cereal industry is in the middle of a genuine transformation right now, largely forced by regulatory pressure from the FDA and HHS, and accelerated by retailers like Target refusing to stock products that still contain synthetic dyes. But removing red and yellow dye from a cereal doesn't automatically make it healthy. Sugar content is still by far the single biggest factor determining whether a cereal is helping your body or quietly working against it every single morning. The real skill here isn't memorizing this list word for word. It's learning to flip the box over yourself and actually read it before it goes in your cart. Here's the 30-second trick I promised you earlier. Look at grams of sugar per serving first, and if it's in the double digits, put it back. Then check the fiber. Anything under 3 grams per serving means you're eating mostly empty carbs that will leave you hungry again within the hour. Then glance at protein, because a cereal with real protein content will actually keep you full, while a cereal with none is just sugar wearing a costume. And finally, don't let a no artificial dyes label on the front of the box convince you the whole product is suddenly clean. Because companies love slapping health claims front and center while the ingredient list on the back tells a completely different story. If this video helped you rethink what's actually sitting in your pantry right now, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep digging into what food companies don't want you to notice on the label. Drop a comment and let me know which one of these 10 surprised you the most, and did your go-to cereal make either list? I'll see you in the next one.